Hi, everybody. Scott Costa, the publisher of TED Magazine. Thanks for joining me for another Distributed with TED Magazine podcast, both video and audio. On this one, I had Greg Palese on. He is the Vice President of Marketing with Klein Tools. We had a great conversation. We talked past, present, and future. We talked about how the history of the company, which is just amazing to think that the company's been in business for 160 years plus, making one pliers at a time and basically starting by word of mouth. We talked about the present, which is just an unbelievable story about how people become fans of the company. And you got to hear the story about the wedding cake. So make sure you're listening to this podcast. And then we talked about the future and the programs that Klein Tools is a part of National Signing Day for students getting involved in the trades. It was really a great conversation. I think it's a podcast you're really going to like. So let's not make you wait. Here's Greg Palese, Vice President of Marketing with Klein Tools on the Distributed with TED Magazine podcast. All right, we're talking past, present, future with Klein Tools with Greg Palese, who's the Vice President of Marketing with Klein Tools. Greg, thanks a ton for joining me on the Distributed with TED Magazine podcast. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Thanks for having me.
All right, here we go. Let's jump right in. First, we want to talk about some of the Klein Tools history and some of the family overview. Give me some background on Klein Tools, the history, and what you're all about.
Sure. So, for a lot of your listeners or viewers, they know the name Klein Tools, may not know the story behind it. We are a family-run, family-managed company. We're actually on our 6th generation of Klein Tools family members running the company today, which is, an incredible story, right? You hear all these stories about, businesses don't make it past the 2nd or the 3rd generation. Here we are in the 6th generation. Mark Klein is co-president running the business. Along with his cousin, Tom Klein Jr., both of these guys are managing the business and taking us, well into the 21st century. And both of them have kids. So the 7th generation has already been born. And, it's just a great story. Again, founded here in Chicago back in, the 1850s by their, I'm going to get it right here. It's their great grandfather, Matthias Klein, started this all way back in 1857.
Yeah, and talk about some of the things that have happened. It's amazing, 1857, the things that have happened since then. And you said, again, Chicago-based. So again, there were no suburbs in 1857. So you're living, and I'm from Chicago. That's why I know this.
Right.
So, again, you're in the city and, again, some of these, it's amazing how they survive some of these things. One of the big ones, the Great Chicago Fire, and Klein Tools is able to survive that. Tell us a little history on that.
Yeah. So, Matthias Klein set up shop. He was actually a blacksmith, and in the 1850s, down in what's known as the Loop here in Chicago, right downtown, heart of Chicago. And he was making other things. He wasn't really making pliers or hand tools. But a guy came in one day and said, "Hey, listen, I got this pair of pliers here. I broke them. Can you forge? Can you help me repair them?" So he forged half a pair of pliers. Put it in and gave it back to the guy. Guy came back a couple days later and said, "Oh man, I broke the other half of the pliers. Can you fix these for me?" Matthias Klein says, "Sure." Puts them together. Guy goes on his way, and guy says, "Man, these things are great. I love these." Right. So therein is the first pair of Klein side cutters, and it's one of those things where he told a guy, and he told another guy, and he told another guy. All of a sudden, Matthias is like, "Oh, hand tools. It seems like a pretty good business here." It's funny because we are known as the tool for electricians, and here Matthias was making pliers before the start of electricity even happened. So he started shopping in Chicago. He's doing a good business, and then all of a sudden, boom! The Great Chicago Fire. Everything is sort of wiped out. Matthias, he's a hardworking guy. He's got a forge. He's back up and running in like 2 weeks, right? And then he's got one of the only forges in the city. So he starts making things. He's not only making hand tools to help rebuild the city, but he's making a lot of things out of iron and steel as the city goes from sort of a, wood-based infrastructure to more steel and iron. 2 weeks later, boom, Matthias is pumping out all kinds of stuff. He's using his blacksmith skills, but at the same time, boy, he's making a lot of pliers. He's making a lot of things to help the tradesmen who are rebuilding the city. And, Matthias Klein just starts from there. Next thing you know, it's Matthias Klein Tool Company, and then it's Matthias Klein and Son, and then it's Matthias Klein and Sons, and then boom, 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 160 years later, you and I are sitting here, doing our thing.
Pretty incredible when you think about, again, word of mouth launched a company that's now been around for 160 years. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Another thing that, again, you talk about another milestone that's happened. Again, 2 world wars that have happened, and still Klein Tools, basically pitches in and does its part. Tell me the World War II story too.
Yeah. So, it's during the wars, it's always sort of, there's a really good bad movie on cable all the time called Battleship. And, they always make this thing in there. They said, the first rule of any invasion is to, get communications established. And sort of the U.S. Army said, understood that. Hey, listen, we're going to all these foreign places. We need to get communications established. They came in and said, hey, listen, we're going to buy every one of your parapliers that you guys can make for the next couple of years, because every radio operator, every communication engineer, all these guys who are, going across the pond and fighting in the war are trying to establish communications and cable and wire. And of course, Klein Tools are the best ones. So all these guys everywhere, World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, all these wars that over the past many years, all the GI servicemen had Klein Tools in their pouches, because they're trying to run, communication wires. We've also heard several stories that they're great for cutting barbed wire and all those things as well. Maybe there was a prison break somewhere across the somebody got out, but and we still find today, it's really interesting, where you go to places like Japan, and Japan, they buy, we have 4,000 different SKUs that we make, and Japan buys pretty much like one SKU, which is our side cutting plier, because all the GIs were there helping to rebuild Japan after the war. And then sort of the Japanese people after the year just said, oh, well, look, all the GIs are using that tool, I'm going to buy that. And it's just this great story where, we help the Army, we help the military during all these times of crisis and all these world wars, help lay cable. And it still holds true today that even in these places where we were, that Klein legacy still is there, and people are buying it just because, 50, 60, 70 years ago, there were some GIs carrying Klein Tools in their pouches.
And again, you talk about, wartime situations, and, when you want to get a job done right, and you have to get it done quickly, obviously, you want to make sure you have the right tools in your pouch. So it does really make sense, I suppose, to have, the Klein Tools with you to make sure, it's not like, oh, these aren't going to work, let's order another pair, and you ship them across the pond, and 3 months later they arrive. So it does kind of make sense that you're doing that. You mentioned Japan and some international expansion. Has there been more than that? What else has been?
Yeah, so Klein really has done a great job. We've over the years, again, I mentioned, there's been these pockets of business over the years, but over the last, I would say, 10 years, we've really put on a focus on growing the brand and growing outside of the U.S. We always found people who would say, oh, I can't do any accents or anything along those lines, but we found guys coming over from Australia, New Zealand, England, Germany. All these people would come to the U.S. at one point or another, and in terms of buying the American souvenirs, you always hear about people buying blue jeans or things of that nature. But guys were buying Klein Tools and going back to their home country and saying, "Man, I got the Klein Tools." So we bought a company in Australia years ago, and we expanded Klein Tools down there. We are huge in New Zealand, but you look all over the globe. We're down in, we bought a company in Brazil years ago, so we've been expanding in South America. We've got a great facility down in Mexico that manufactures tools for the Mexican market and South America. So Klein Tools Mexico, that's been going strong. So you look at the business, and it really has grown through acquisitions, but also just sort of distribution, right? There's here in America, everyone knows City Electric Supply, a huge distributor here in the U.S. City Electric in the U.K. is also huge. We've got a great partnership with them. We're in a bunch of stores in the U.K., so that's been a huge growth for us. But really, you look all across the globe, we've got great partners no matter where we go. And the Klein Tools brand has really just sort of blossomed and grown incredible amounts in a short period of time in all these far-flung locations, from New Zealand to South America to Mexico to even into the some of the places with the oil companies in the Middle East are using Klein Tools. So just a great story for us.
Yeah, it really is. So now I'm going to tell my story as we get into the fandom part here. So, and then Greg, I want to hear some of the, because your stories are going to be better than mine, but let me at least throw this one out there. So
Sure.
I go and visit Klein Tools. This was a number of years ago at the headquarters in suburban Chicago, Lincolnshire, right? Buffalo Grove,
Yep, that's where
Lincolnshire.
you
Yeah.
are.
So I go and visit. It's great. We have a great talk. And I'm walking out there like, oh, come on, take a hat with you. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I take a hat and I go home, and my dad, just for, so people at home know. So my dad's been in the construction industry forever, still working today, 82 years old, still goes to work every
God
day.
bless him.
Yeah. So I go and see him because they live in Chicago, and I'm stopping there on my way home. And I'm like, hey, I should probably show you. I got this hat, and he sees this hat, and no kidding, Greg, it's like Christmas and his birthday and Father's Day all rolled
Nice.
into one with this hat. He's like, I am wearing this to work every day. People are going to be so jealous that I have a Klein Tools hat. And the truth is, I come to find out that he's not alone. Like, there are some fans of Klein Tools who are willing to do almost anything, including tattoos. So tell me kind of, some of the stories that you're hearing from how folks are so involved in the brand. It's so strong with them.
Yeah, we get a ton of photos of great Klein Tools fans who are so passionate about the brand, so engaged with the brand. And so we get tons of photos where guys are posting, our logo or the side cutters, or even I saw a guy one day, he had one of our clamp meters on his leg. But we get photos, weekly. It is a nonstop. People sending in saying, hey, look at this. I got the new Klein Tools tattoo, which is amazing to me, but it goes even farther than that. I've seen people have sent in pictures of their wedding cake, which is, in the shape of our logo, with the Klein Tools on it. I've seen baby pictures where, instead of, on a rug or something, they're in a Klein Tools bag, where, they're named, they have their baby there. Perhaps my favorite story was I met a woman years ago. She and her husband were electricians. Her son was an electrician. And again, she gave me this great story. She said, you know what? She said, I'm going to get my first tattoo. I'm 60 something years old. I'm going to get my first tattoo in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a pair of Klein side cutters. And I was like, man, that's a great story. But the story got even better. She said, my son's an electrician. He loves your thing. And we just had our first grandson. I said, oh, well, congratulations, first grandson. She said, we named him Klein Wiley, blah, blah, blah. So here she was, even then, she's naming her son Klein, just because of, the company and the brand and the history. So, the fans are just great. They love us, and we love them back. But the stories I hear are just incredible.
Oh, I bet. I want to talk collectors in a second.
Yeah.
But let's stick with the fans for 1 second, because again, trade shows are coming up, and I've seen certainly the Klein booth, exhibit stations that Klein has. I have to assume that you've got some great stories of folks who are just lined up and so excited to see the entire swath of what you have all in one place.
Yeah, it's like a kid going in a candy store or the old toy store back when you were a day. Mark Klein, who is our president here, he tells a great story when he first started in the business. Young guy, he had been out in the workforce, but he went to his first trade show with Klein Tools, and a guy came running up to him like, "Oh my God, you're a Klein, nice to meet you." And Mark was just sort of like, "What is this going on?" The guy was so excited to meet him, and all of a sudden the guy starts to like take his shirt off, and Mark's like, what is this guy doing? And all of a sudden, and here it is. This guy's got a huge tattoo of Klein Tools on it. And Mark tells that story all the time about how, even though he grew up in the business, and even though he'd been around it for years, and his grandfather and his great grandfather and so on down the line, that was when he sort of said, okay, something is going on here. We have these great fans. But again, we get that all the time where people come up and they're so excited to see us, so excited to tell their stories about their grandfather. My grandfather gave these to my dad. My dad gave these to me, and I've been using these same side cutters for 50 years. And again, the story about your dad and the hat, and I had a bag, I had this, I had that. It's just amazing the generational love that we get from grandparents and parents and kids and all that down the line, because you meet these guys and they tell these stories about how they've been using Klein, their family's been using Klein. It really is sort of just, it's humbling just to hear all these great stories about people who are so entrenched with your brand.
And so when you lock up the two of having great, again, brand friendly fans who are customers and tools that you've been making for 160 years that seem to last forever, what you end up with is collectibles. And I'm assuming you get then a lot of people who are contacting you saying, can you tell me when these were made? Again, my great grandfather used them and I can still use them today. So give me an idea sort of what the collectors are asking you about, or what kind of feedback they want, if there's any kind of, replacement parts to them, whatever they need, what kind of stories are you getting about those collectors that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great people online. Again, social media is a great place. There's a couple of really great groups, Klein Tools collectors, Klein Tools fans, where people will post these things, just as you mentioned. Usually, I love them sort of over the weekends and on Mondays. You'll see guys that come in. Oh, I was at the, I hit a garage sale this weekend. Look at this. Look at this. Look at these tools I got. And they're always sort of wondering, again, for a company that's been around 164 years, everyone's always like, hey, what's this date code? What does this mean? How old is this? We've published several blogs and several things over the years, sort of, explaining our date code system so people can sort of understand, okay, oh yeah, that's from June of 1910, or that's from, 1902. And then over the years, we've also had so many sort of special and commemorative pliers that we've done. We did ones for Y2K. We did ones for our 150th anniversary, 160th anniversary. This year, we've launched a commemorative edition pliers called the American Legacy Edition. And it's not just pliers, it's pliers, screwdrivers. We've also got some canvas bags there, all made here in the U.S. at our factories here in the U.S., and sort of celebrating our legacy of being a American manufacturer of hand tools. And those things are getting snapped up at distribution left and right. We're already seeing some on eBay that are going for, 2 times the price. And, again, the biggest questions we always get are just sort of, how old are these? I found these. What are these? And, it's really sort of amazing to see some of these tools that have been around for 100 years, just sort of still out in the world, out in the marketplace. It really is amazing to see.
Yeah, it really is. So when you combine, again, kind of the legacy users with the limited edition stuff that you said that you do, on a limited edition basis, again, these folks are contacting you through whatever, social media, they're sending you an email, they're texting, they're finding whatever they can get a chat, So what is Klein doing to just kind of make sure that you're trying to answer every question that's out there as they're all kind of coming in from all angles? I mean, it's obviously impossible to say we got one guy and all he does is comb social media. That's all he does all day. Right. But certainly you guys are committed to making sure that, again, these questions are answered and people are getting a better understanding of the tools, right?
Yeah. So, we do. We have a great team here. The social media team does a great job to sort of monitoring and figuring out things online. The marketing team here, my team here does a great job answering emails. We get lots of emails from people asking questions about things that they're doing. Our customer service team is readily available and answers questions all day long, answers emails really from all over the globe. So we've got a number of people and a number of ways to reach us. And they're all on our website. We've got phone numbers and emails for people who want to reach Klein Tools and ask a question one way or another. And, we try and do a great job. Again, there's 300 million people in the U.S. and 8 billion people in the world. We don't get to every email. We can't get to everybody at all times, but we certainly do our best to answer people. And I know myself, I try and reply back to a lot of the educators and VOTEC teachers who are really doing a great job of helping the next generation of tradesmen. When they write in and they need things or they need help, I try and get back to those guys as much as I can to answer their questions, or if they need any training videos or training materials, we've got some of that stuff. We send them out there, or if I can even just put them in touch with a local rep. Again, we've got reps all across the country, out across, from Maine on to Texas and California. And these people are out there in the communities and they're stopping by schools, they're stopping by distribution, they're stopping by job sites. So overall, Klein's out there in the community. We're talking to people. We try and do a great job. We don't get to everybody, and we don't reply to every, troll on social media, but we certainly try and do our best to answer the questions of the fans.
Yeah, it's understood. We get that. So you mentioned next generation. We've talked past, we talked present, time to talk future, next generation. What is Klein doing, for the future now? What are some of the new products in addition to the pliers and the screwdrivers? Where is Klein headed in terms of new products?
Yeah, so I think, everyone always sort of says, oh, Klein Tools, they're a plier, wire stripper, screwdriver category, but we're so much more than that now. I mentioned about our international expansion. We've grown our product portfolio, right? Now, when you think about Klein Tools, we've got a huge growing PPE category, hard hats and knee pads and masks and respirators and all these things that, as the OSHA rules have gotten so much more stringent over the last couple of years, certainly, we've been right there to help, supply tradesmen what they need just to meet the PPE regulations. You think about other things like job sites now. You spend your whole time on a job site. So we've got, portable Bluetooth radios. We've got battery chargers for your phone. We've got battery that you can run, table saws off of. We've got solar power batteries. I mean, all these things you think about on a job site down to everything you could think you could need on a job site. It's not a tool, on down. We've got this isn't one of them, but we've got coffee cups that a guy can use on a job site. So job site accessories has been a huge growth category for us. And then, contractors, right? We know that contractors have the staples, right? Fish tapes and benders and all these things that contractors just buy tons of over the years. We've got a huge portfolio of those things. We launched some great new benders at the end of last year with some unique technology, some angle setting technology that's brand new, patented technology on the world to help guys get their bends right. And all these things and all these categories, we've been adding to our portfolio to the point now when we've got about 4,000 different SKUs in the product lineup, and our catalog's about that thick of SKUs. And so we're not just a plier and screwdriver and wire stripper company anymore. We're really a whole tool, whole job site supplier to a professional tradesman.
We've talked about some cool stuff. Again, we talked about tattoos and wedding cakes and my dad's hat and stuff like that. One of the really cool things that we haven't talked about that we have to get into is Klein's commitment to this the skills gap. And of course, we're all struggling, whether you're a contractor or a distributor. It doesn't matter. We seem to be short-staffed, and Klein's been very committed to getting people into the trades and into the trade schools. Take us into some of the things you're doing with that youth risk. Tell us about signing day. Some of the things that Klein is committed to and continues to be committed to for the future.
Yeah, so we started out a couple of years ago. Again, we started hearing from contractors and people on job sites. Hey, listen, we don't have enough electricians. There's not enough plumbers. There's not enough, tradesmen going in. So, we started doing our research and digging in, and we wrote, several op-ed and opinion pieces and saying, hey, there's this looming skills gap coming. It sort of just felt like, hey, we were just sort of shouting, and then everyone else started shouting, and we wanted to do something, put some meat behind it. We started out local here in Chicago. We worked with a youth group on the south side of Chicago, at-risk youth, provided those guys with a bunch of tools where these guys were taking some construction classes to learn how to, use things like tape measures and pliers and screwdrivers where, they had never been taught those skills, growing up. So there are some great programs there where we were able to go in and help outfit those youth. But boy, it was really successful, but we wanted to go larger. We wanted to go bigger. How can we sort of bring attention to the skills gap, encourage people to go into the skilled trades? And we thought about this idea of a national signing day. You think about the college athlete or the high school athlete who gets to sign to, his big college. He gets to put his hat on in the lunchroom, and all the students are like, hey, Joe's going to Florida or Alabama or wherever. Great. Everyone, lots of kids get excited about seeing that. The kids who are going to four-year schools all get to wear their college, sweatshirt around and say, I'm going to Ohio State, I'm going here, I'm going there. But the kids who were going to trade school just didn't get recognized, there was nothing, right? They were just graduating high school, going to trade school. So we started this initiative called National Signing Day. We partnered with Skills USA, who's a big vocational VOTEC organization across the country, or high schools across the country. And we went out and talked to the schools and said, we want to recognize and honor these kids who are going into the trades. And it was as much about honoring those kids, but boy, the freshman or the sophomore in high school doesn't know what he wants to do and is he going to go to college. He gets to see, well, hey, the trades guys have their day. These guys are doing great stuff. And we brought a little bit of star power to this day, this National Signing Day. Jimmy Garoppolo, who is the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, he's a local Chicago guy. His father was a 40-year career electrician for the local 134 here in Chicago. So we got Jimmy, we called him up. We said, hey, listen, we have this great idea. We want to bring some awareness to the skills gap, bring a little star power. And we want you and we want your dad. And they jumped right in and said, boy, this is a great cause. We want to be part of this. And they've done a lot of great press and media. And, that's a big deal, right? I mean, when it's on CNN or it's on ESPN or it's on Yahoo or it's on all these things, the kids who were thinking about going to school, all of a sudden, oh, this is pretty cool. Jimmy Garoppolo's on ESPN talking about how the trades are a great career. Maybe it's something I'll consider. And that's really what we tried to do. And over the last couple of years, hundreds of high schools across the country have participated in this event. Thousands of students have signed a national letter of intent to go to a trade school and pursue a career in the skilled trades. And, we're really happy to be part of it and driving this initiative and sort of getting kids to think about a career in the skilled trades so we can all help solve this skills gap.
That is so cool and so impressive. And I appreciate you sharing that with us too, because keep that up, because that's really awesome. Greg Palese, who's the Vice President of Marketing for Klein Tools. I learned a lot today. So thanks a ton for joining me on the Distributed with TED Magazine podcast. No, I appreciate you. Or thanks for coming out. Don't thank me. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Hold tight one sec. Real quick, again, if folks want to contact me about this podcast or other things TED Magazine is doing, the digital edition of the magazine, tedmag.com, Lighted, our e-newsletters. It's still two ways you can do that. One, you can give me a phone call. My phone's right there. I'll pick it up, 314-812-5311. Or you can send me an email, scosta, SCOSTA @NAAD.org. Love to hear from you, trade some ideas until we get a chance to talk to each other or see each other again. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for the Distributed with TED Magazine podcast.